The world does not break you by accident. It breaks you deliberately, repeatedly, and without apology. If Machiavelli were speaking to you now, he would not comfort you. He would not tell you that things will get better. He would not ask you to stay kind, stay hopeful, or stay patient. He would tell you something far more dangerous. The world does not reward goodness. It tests it until it collapses. Most people believe the world breaks the weak. Machiavelli knew better. The world breaks the open. It breaks those who expect fairness. It breaks those who believe effort guarantees outcome. It breaks those who think being good will protect them from being used. You were not broken because you were incapable. You were broken because you were exposed. The first truth Machiavelli would force you to accept is this: the world is not cruel. It is indifferent. Cruelty implies intention. Indifference implies something worse. You are not being attacked. You are being filtered. Pressure is not personal. It is selective. The world applies weight to everyone. Some collapse. Some adapt. And a few learn to become heavier than the pressure itself. This is where ruthlessness begins. Not as violence, not as hatred, but as insulation. Ruthlessness is the ability to absorb force without fracturing. It is the discipline to remove expectation before expectation becomes vulnerability. Most people break because they carry illusions into environments that do not honor them. They believe loyalty is returned. They believe effort is noticed. They believe suffering earns protection. They believe honesty creates safety. Machiavelli would call these beliefs expensive. The world does not break you all at once. It breaks you slowly. First, it disappoints you. Then it ignores you. Then it uses you. Finally, it replaces you. By the time most people realize what is happening, they are already exhausted, resentful, and confused about how they arrived there. This confusion is weakness. The man who survives does not ask why this happens. He asks how it happens consistently. And once he understands the pattern, he stops being surprised. Surprise is the enemy of strength. The first step toward ruthlessness is clarity. Not anger, not rebellion. Clarity. Clarity begins when you accept that the world does not care about your intentions. It cares about your utility, your position, and your replaceability. The moment your value becomes uncertain, pressure increases. When pressure increases, character is exposed. Most people respond to pressure emotionally. They complain, they justify, they explain, they seek validation. Machiavelli would see this as surrender. Emotion leaks information. Information creates leverage for others. The ruthless man does the opposite. He becomes quieter. He observes patterns instead of reacting to moments. He measures outcomes, not words. He stops taking things personally and starts taking notes. This is where the internal shift begins. You stop expecting understanding. You stop demanding fairness. You stop assuming goodwill. And in doing so, something strange happens. The world stops breaking you as easily, not because it becomes kinder, but because you become harder to damage. Machiavelli understood that the world respects boundaries it did not create. The man who relies on others to protect him will always be disappointed. The man who protects himself quietly becomes dangerous. Ruthlessness, in its purest form, is the removal of emotional dependency. When you no longer need approval, gratitude, or recognition to function, the world loses one of its sharpest weapons against you. Most people are controlled through hope. They are kept compliant by the promise that things will improve if they endure a little longer. Machiavelli would call this delayed submission. Hope without leverage is a leash. The ruthless man replaces hope with preparation. He does not ask if the world will be fair. He asks how the world behaves under pressure. And the answer is always the same. People protect themselves first. This is not cynicism. This is accuracy. The second truth Machiavelli would teach you is this. People reveal their true nature when consequences arrive. Before consequences, everyone speaks the language of values. After consequences, behavior changes. The man who builds his life around spoken values will be shocked. The man who builds it around observed behavior will be prepared. Prepared men are not broken easily. The world breaks those who assume stability. It tests those who assume loyalty. It exploits those who assume reciprocity. Machiavelli would urge you to stop assuming and start structuring. Structure creates resilience. Resilience creates leverage. You become ruthless not when you hurt others, but when you stop allowing yourself to be hurt by predictable patterns. You stop over-investing. You stop over-revealing. You stop over-trusting environments that have not earned it. This does not make you cruel. It makes you selective, and selection is survival. At this point, many people resist. They feel a moral discomfort rising. They fear becoming cold. They fear losing their humanity. Machiavelli would dismantle this fear without mercy. He would tell you that humanity without boundaries is not virtue, it is exposure. The world does not reward exposed men, it consumes them. Ruthlessness is not about domination, it is about endurance. The man who endures long enough eventually outlasts those who burn bright and collapse early. Time favors the insulated. This is why Machiavelli valued restraint more than aggression. Aggression attracts attention. Attention attracts resistance. Resistance accelerates conflict. Conflict drains resources. The ruthless man avoids unnecessary conflict not because he fears it, but because he understands its cost. By now, you should feel the discomfort settling in. That discomfort is the sound of illusions breaking. This is good. The world already breaks you externally. Let this break happen internally, where it is useful. Because what comes next is not about surviving the world. It is about positioning yourself so the world cannot easily touch you again. The next truths will move deeper into why kindness is exploited, how morality is weaponized, and why emotional exposure is the fastest path to collapse. This is only the beginning. If Machiavelli were continuing now, he would not soften his tone, he would deepen it. Because once you accept that the world breaks the exposed, the next question becomes unavoidable. Why do so many people remain exposed even after being hurt? The answer is uncomfortable, because softness feels moral, and ruthlessness feels wrong, until you understand what ruthlessness truly is. Most people misunderstand ruthlessness as cruelty. Machiavelli never did. Cruelty is impulsive. Ruthlessness is controlled. Cruelty is emotional. Ruthlessness is calculated. Cruelty reacts. Ruthlessness anticipates. The world is not broken by cruelty. It is governed by calculation. The world breaks people who refuse to adapt their inner rules to outer reality. The third truth Machiavelli would force upon you is this. Kindness without power is an invitation to exploitation. The world does not hate kind people. It uses them, and it does so quietly, repeatedly, without apology. Kindness signals availability. Availability signals replaceability. Replaceability invites pressure. People are rarely cruel at first. They become demanding, then entitled, then dismissive. By the time cruelty appears, the damage is already done. Machiavelli would tell you that the mistake was not being kind. It was being kind without leverage. Leverage changes everything. A man with leverage can choose kindness. A man without leverage is forced into it. This is why the world respects boundaries it did not help you build. When boundaries are self-imposed and enforced consistently, behavior around you changes. Not because people become better, but because consequences become clearer. The fourth truth is sharper. Morality is often used as a weapon against those who cannot afford to defend themselves. Machiavelli observed that powerful people rarely argue morality when they are winning. They invoke it when they are losing. Morality becomes a restraint placed on others to limit resistance while preserving advantage. You are told to be patient while others advance. You are told to be forgiving while others accumulate power. You are told to stay ethical while others rewrite the rules. Machiavelli would call this asymmetrical warfare. The ruthless man does not abandon morality. He removes it from situations where it is used selectively. He understands that principles applied unevenly become traps. He stops volunteering disadvantage. This is where many people break again. They cling to ideals even when those ideals are costing them survival. They confuse moral identity with self-worth. Machiavelli would separate the two without hesitation. Your worth does not come from your sacrifice. It comes from your position. Position determines outcomes. Outcomes determine survival. The fifth truth is structural. The world pressures those who are easy to read. Emotional transparency feels honest, but it is expensive. When people know what hurts you, they know where to apply pressure. When people know what you hope for, they know what to withhold. When people know what you fear, they know how to control you. Machiavelli did not teach emotional suppression. He taught emotional discipline. There is a difference. Suppression leaks. Discipline conceals. The disciplined man still feels, but he chooses when those feelings are visible. Visibility is vulnerability. The ruthless man does not announce his exhaustion. He adjusts his exposure. He does not confess his plans. He structures them. He does not seek sympathy. He seeks stability. The sixth truth cuts deeper. The world breaks people who confuse effort with value. Effort feels virtuous. Value feels transactional. Machiavelli would tell you that the world does not reward how hard you try. It rewards how difficult you are to replace. Hard work that does not increase leverage becomes invisible labor. Invisible labor breeds resentment. Resentment drains energy. Eventually, the man collapses under a weight no one else feels obligated to reduce. The ruthless man does not work harder blindly. He works where leverage compounds. He positions himself closer to decision-making, closer to resources, closer to control points. He reduces effort while increasing impact. This is not laziness. It is efficiency under pressure. The seventh truth is psychological. People respect consistency more than intensity. Intense people burn out. Consistent people outlast. The world does not fear bursts of emotion. It adapts to them. It does fear predictable standards that do not bend under pressure. The ruthless man is not explosive. He is stable. His reactions are boring. His boundaries do not fluctuate. This predictability makes him difficult to manipulate. People stop testing him because testing yields nothing. The eighth truth reveals why most people never become ruthless. They fear losing their identity. They believe that becoming harder means becoming empty. Machiavelli would dismantle this fear. He would tell you that identity is not what you feel. It is what survives repeated pressure. What you lose under pressure was never stable to begin with. The world does not break your true self. It strips away illusions. What remains is what can endure. Ruthlessness is not about erasing empathy. It is about preventing empathy from becoming self-destruction. The ninth truth is cold but freeing. Not everyone deserves access to you. Access is power. The more accessible you are, the less valuable your presence becomes. Machiavelli controlled access deliberately, not out of arrogance, but out of necessity. Unlimited access invites unlimited demands. The ruthless man becomes selective. He reduces availability. He filters relationships. He stops explaining his boundaries. Explanations invite negotiation. Boundaries enforced quietly invite respect. The 10th truth is about recovery. The world does not care how broken you are, only how functional you remain. Sympathy fades quickly. Utility endures. Machiavelli would advise you to heal privately and perform publicly. Exposure during weakness invites opportunism. This is not cruelty toward yourself. It is protection. You do not become ruthless overnight. You become ruthless the moment you stop offering the world pieces of yourself it has not earned. You stop expecting fairness. You stop advertising wounds. You stop hoping environments will change. And slowly, something shifts. The world pushes less. People test you less. Chaos avoids you more often, not because the world has softened, but because you are no longer easy to break. The final truths will go even deeper. They will explain why emotional softness is targeted, how suffering is exploited, and why the ruthless are left standing when others collapse. This is where ruthlessness becomes not just defense, but dominance. If Machiavelli were finishing now, he would strip away the last illusion people cling to when everything else has failed. The belief that suffering itself has meaning. The world does not honor pain. It does not compensate endurance. It does not reward those who endure quietly while hoping to be seen. Suffering, when unconverted, is wasted energy. Machiavelli would tell you that the ruthless man does not glorify pain. He transforms it. This is the final shift. From being shaped by the world to shaping how the world is allowed to touch you. The 11th truth is brutal in its simplicity. The world targets what reacts. Reaction confirms sensitivity. Sensitivity invites pressure. Pressure escalates until something gives. Most people are broken not by the size of the blow, but by the predictability of their reactions. The world learns where you bend by watching you bend. Machiavelli would advise you to become unreadable under pressure. Not silent in weakness, silent in control. When your reactions no longer reveal where you are fragile, pressure loses direction. It becomes inefficient, and the world avoids inefficient battles. The 12th truth is colder. Empathy without limits becomes self-erasure. The ruthless man does not lack empathy. He contains it. He understands that empathy applied universally is not compassion. It is exposure. The world does not protect those who overextend themselves emotionally. It exploits them. Machiavelli would urge you to reserve empathy for those whose alignment has been proven by time, behavior, and consequence. Everyone else receives distance. Distance is not cruelty. Distance is filtration. The 13th truth explains why so many collapse late rather than early. Hope delays necessary hardness. Hope convinces people to stay longer than they should, to tolerate environments that drain them, to forgive patterns that repeat. Hope becomes the rope that keeps them tied to the very forces breaking them. Machiavelli would not destroy hope. He would replace it with leverage. Hope without leverage is submission. Leverage without hope is control. The ruthless man does not hope situations improve. He positions himself so improvement becomes irrelevant. The 14th truth is structural. The world breaks those who cannot say no without guilt. Guilt is one of the most effective control mechanisms ever invented. It convinces people to sacrifice themselves voluntarily. Machiavelli recognized guilt as a political tool long before it was a psychological one. The ruthless man removes guilt from decisions that concern survival, stability, and position. He understands that saying no is not an attack, it is a boundary, and boundaries reduce chaos. The 15th truth is subtle but decisive. People treat you according to how easily you recover. If you collapse after loss, pressure increases. If you recover quietly and continue functioning, pressure decreases. Machiavelli would never allow the world to see him destabilized, not because he did not feel pain, but because visibility invites exploitation. Pain is processed privately. Stability is displayed publicly. This is not dishonesty. This is self-preservation. The 16th truth reframes strength entirely. The ruthless man is not the one who resists the world hardest, but the one who adapts fastest without losing direction. Rigidity shatters, flexibility survives, but flexibility without core principles dissolves. Machiavelli taught adaptive rigidity, unyielding goals, flexible methods. You stop demanding that the world makes sense. You stop insisting people behave better. You stop expecting effort to be acknowledged, and instead, you begin shaping outcomes. The 17th truth is uncomfortable. The world respects those who can walk away. Neediness invites control. Attachment invites leverage for others. The ruthless man cultivates optionality. He does not trap himself in dependencies he cannot exit. He always maintains a path of withdrawal. This is why he is rarely cornered. This is why he is rarely broken. The 18th truth explains the final transformation. Once you stop being easy to hurt, you stop being interesting to predators. Predators seek reaction, chaos, compliance. When none appear, they move on. The world does the same. It presses elsewhere. It searches for easier targets. Ruthlessness creates invisibility where visibility is dangerous. The 19th truth closes the loop. The world does not break those who stop negotiating their worth. When you no longer argue your value, when you no longer explain your boundaries, when you no longer seek permission to protect yourself, pressure recalibrates. Machiavelli would tell you that worth is not declared. It is enforced through consistency. And finally, the 20th truth, the one most people never reach. The ruthless man is not angry at the world. Anger is attachment. Anger is reaction. Anger is energy spent trying to correct what will not change. The ruthless man accepts the world exactly as it is and adapts without resentment. This is why he survives. This is why he outlasts. This is why he becomes dangerous, not because he destroys others, but because he cannot be easily destroyed himself. If Machiavelli were standing here now, this is where he would stop speaking, not because there is nothing left to say, but because the final lesson cannot be taught through words. It must be lived. The world will continue to apply pressure. It will continue to test boundaries. It will continue to exploit softness where it finds it. But if you have listened carefully, something has already changed. You no longer expect protection. You no longer rely on fairness. You no longer confuse morality with safety. You have learned to insulate yourself without becoming hollow. You have learned to endure without advertising pain. You have learned to stand without demanding recognition. That is ruthlessness, not cruelty, not hatred, not domination, but the quiet decision to stop being breakable